of President Emmerson Mnangagwa's term of office, among other controversial proposals. In a petition dated February the 11th, addressed to the African Commission Chairperson Mahmoud Ali Yusuf in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the NDWG acting chairperson and chief facilitator Zenzo Nkomo said a constitutional coup was underway in Zimbabwe. He said the AU could not remain silent when a coup is in motion in one of its member states, particularly given Zimbabwe's obligations under its charter and protocols. South Africa has been elected by member states to serve a 2-year term on the Peace and Security Council of the African Union starting on the 1st of April. The elections took place during the 38th ordinary session of the AU's Executive Council in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Ronald Lamola says it reaffirms South Africa's role in fostering a more resilient continent. The International Committee of the Red Cross, or ICRC, is in South Africa this week, stepping up its diplomatic efforts to address Africa's escalating humanitarian crises. Patrick Youssef, the ICRC's Regional Director for Africa, will meet government officials and diplomats in Cape Town to draw attention to the urgent needs of civilians caught in conflict and to advocate for stronger political commitment to international humanitarian law. Youssef explains.
It is to take proactive action at regional but also at continental forums. Upcoming is the AU Assembly, and there we're really expecting a louder voice on making sure that a war continues. The belligerents respect international law, but they also respect the basic principles of humanity, meaning those who are not fighting be afforded the right protection, and those infrastructures that are supposed to serve the local population, from providing water to health services, that they are not to be targeted. And therefore, it is practically very possible, after being very vocal, to truly take measures and steps to make sure that during armed conflicts, these laws are respected.
The Al-Jama Party in South Africa says President Cyril Ramaphosa should address the issue of the country's immigration and refugees policies. The party's MP, Imran Musa, was sharing his party's expectations ahead of President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address this evening. He is scheduled to address the nation from the Cape Town City Hall at 7 p.m. Central African Time. Musa explains what they would like to hear tonight.
Refugees, asylum seekers must be treated with kindness, dignity, compassion, and in line with our Constitution. The current white paper on immigration contains serious contradictions that risk undermining South Africa's moral standing, our constitutional ethos, and even our international legal positions. Al-Jama expects the President to reaffirm South Africa's historic commitment to African and international solidarity, rooted in the support we ourselves received during the anti-apartheid struggle.
And finally, queues have built up outside polling stations in Bangladesh for the first elections since the ousting of the authoritarian Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in 2024. Her Awami League party has been banned from running, but more than 2,000 candidates are vying for a seat in Parliament. The BBC's Yogita Lemaye has the details.
At all the polling booths we've been to in Dhaka, we've seen a heavy security presence. More than 127 million people are eligible to vote in this election, and within the first few hours of polling we've seen polling booths get quite busy, so there is an air of excitement. The key contenders in this election are the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and the Islamist Jamaat-e-Islami. These are both parties with a long history in Bangladesh. Some of the student leaders who participated in the uprising also formed a party that is fighting this election in an alliance with Jamaat-e-Islami.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Grand Kekana sidesteps Sundown's league storm. And India opener Abhishek Sharma is a doubtful starter against Namibia in New Delhi. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is 12:05 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app and Channel Africa app on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +27 83 288 6684, #Africa Update. Coming up in this hour, Zimbabwe's National Democratic Working Group has submitted a petition to the African Union urging it to intervene in a proposed draft legislative that could extend the presidential terms from 5 to 7 years. And reports of child abuse and neglect in South Africa are skyrocketing. Today on #Africa Update, ask reports of child abuse and neglect in South Africa are skyrocketing. In 2024-2025 financial year, the Department of Social Development reported more than 26,000 cases. Later in the show, we will be speaking to Kurt van Heerden, a man from Johannesburg who is fighting the scourge. What is happening where you are, and tell us about the people that are assisting communities. And this is our question for today. Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684, #Africa Update us.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Some of the political parties represented in Parliament say South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa must address basic issues facing South Africans when he delivers a State of the Nation address. Ramaphosa will deliver this year's SONA this evening at the Cape Town City Hall. The City Hall has been hosting SONA since the fire that destroyed some of the parliamentary buildings in January 2022. Several political parties say the president must address issues of joblessness, water challenges, as well as safety and security matters. The MK Party caretaker Chief Whip Mabatu Mokoena Zondi says the party wants President Cyril Ramaphosa to show evidence of delivery under the government of national unity.
From the MK Party and as the official opposition, we're looking for one thing: delivery. The president must explain what the government of national unity has changed in real terms, not politically, economically. We want to know it practically. People still don't have water. Electricity is still unstable. Municipalities are still failing. And young people remain locked out of the economy.
The IFP wants the president to focus, among other things, on rural safety as well as gender-based violence and femicide. Here's the party's chief whip, Nhlanhla Hadebe.
We expect firm action to strengthen border control, address illegal immigration, and improve rural safety with better policing and dedicated gender-based violence and femicide units. Economically, we want real plans to bring down youth unemployment, support small businesses, and grow rural industries, especially small-scale farming. Water security must also take center stage.
The Patriotic Alliance says job creation as well as safer communities must be prioritized. The party's MP Jasmine Peterson explains.
The Patriotic Alliance expects to see more of the GNU's promises gradually fulfilled, with clear timelines and accountability in advancing economic inclusion, job creation, safer communities, and equitable development for all.
The leader of Build One South Africa, or BOSA, Dr. Musi Maimane, wants Ramaphosa to also tackle educational matters.
Be able to tell us categorically who the Minister of Police is going to be so that we have stable leadership. We can ensure that we devolve policing and make sure that we increase the 120,000 missing detectives so that South Africa becomes safe. That President Ramaphosa addresses the question of education, which is that how do we increase the number of learners who are taking maths and science so that more people participate in their economy? And thirdly, how do we ensure that our economy is able to grow at between 4 to 5%?
The Al Jama wants Ramaphosa to put emphasis on issues of solidarity. Here's the party's MP Imran Ismail Musa.
Al Jama expects the president to reaffirm South Africa's historic commitment to African and international solidarity rooted in the support we ourselves received during the anti-apartheid struggle. We further expect clarity that restrictive doctrines such as the so-called first safe country principle have no basis in international refugee law.
And the PAC wishes that the question of land will be prioritized by Ramaphosa. Secretary General Apha Pue elaborates.
The PAC, therefore, expects this honor to confront the real national crisis, immediate land restoration and tenure security, industrialization that creates dignified and sustainable jobs, uncompromising end to corruption and wasteful expenditure, bold investment in youth development, education, and community infrastructure, to secure the land to restore justice, to empower the young and build the nation. South Africa cannot postpone economic freedom any longer. The time for justice is now.
And that was the PAC Secretary General Apha Pue.
Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store. As Africa renews, so does its voices. 60 years of Channel Africa. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:13 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, Sheikh Anta Diop University, Senegal's top university in Dakar, has closed its doors indefinitely following the death of one of its students. The government says an investigation is underway to determine the circumstances surrounding the death of second-year dental surgery student Abdoulaye Ba. Rights groups have condemned the violence by security forces. There is growing frustration among young people who feel betrayed by a government they helped elect. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Yankoba Saidi, an associate professor at the university. Prof, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you for having me.
Now, how has the university community reacted to the death of Abdoulaye Ba, and what's the mood like among students and staff?
Thank you very much. First thing to address is the university is not closed indefinitely. This is only the social campus which is closed, which is because the day the process took place, this was the only place which was open to police forces to enter, and this wasn't the case for the education where we are currently. This is open. Of course, there is no class at this moment, simply because when the students have to have their classes, once they are off, they have to go to the social campus, where we have student services, restoration, and everything, and that restaurants and that. But this is not the case now, and for that reason, the mood, as you said, mood is very, very different. The campus, even here, the educational campus is extremely, extremely, I mean, there is no students, so to speak. Everybody is back home, and administration is here. I have to acknowledge that the life that the campus used to have, it's almost dead. It is not living as it was the case only a week ago, and this is very sad. I remember the first day I talked to your colleagues. That was the day this Abdoulaye Ba passed away. The students declared that day a black day. A black day because this was in remembrance of what happened in another university in Senegal, which is Gaston Berger University in the north of the country, where in May 2018, another student died in the same conditions. Protest, about scholarship which were paid, and at the end of the day, a student lost his life. Now, that was back in 2018. And this year, the same, when this happened, the students said, okay, they will have to remember that Black Day, and then they will even join their friends, on the campus in the north of the country. And they decided not to have any demonstration. What they instead decided was to go to the restaurant and have what they call journée sans ticket, which means to have access to the restaurant without paying anything. Of course, there is no violence, but they will eat without paying. And when the government had the press conference, the news conference, the Minister of Home Affairs said that they decided to send the police into the campus simply because they got intelligence saying that the students not only decided to eat without paying, but if ever they have to face opposition for that, then they will be destroying the restaurant infrastructures. And for that reason, the Home Affairs Minister decided that, well, they had to take early measures and send the police there so to prevent the students from doing that. And that resulted in what everybody knows, clashes in a day which was supposed to be a day without violent action. And that's why when what happened, everyone was taken aback because we did not think this could happen in that day. The students decided that on the following day, which is Tuesday, yes, they would demonstrate if ever the situation did not, find a solution. But not on Monday. They all said this. It was very clear to all of us. They declared this on the radio, in the media. Everyone received this information. And that is why nobody understood the measure of sending the police forces inside the campus, knowing that this always results, in violent clashes, and the images are simply not, bearable.
Now, there was a meeting yesterday with the Vice Chancellor. Can you give us an update as to exactly what unfolded and what is the plan of action going forward?
The meeting that took place yesterday, was the Academic Council that decided, to suspend the students' organizations for a certain time, and with the precision that the educational activities, should continue, and that shows that the suspension of the closure of the social campus should not last long, because by the time these sad events are taking place, we went through, in 2023, 9 months of closure of the university because of political tensions. And this, to be honest, had a very, very, it was a very big blow in the university calendar. And then the academic year was completely, disrupted. And by the time things are coming back to normalcy, these sad events take place, and we don't want this, to look like what happened 2 years ago. And for that reason, everybody has to act in a very responsible way, so to avoid, the situations that we had to undergo last 2 years. Then, yes.
Because of time, we are going to have to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
You're welcome.
That was Yankoba Saidi, an associate professor at the University Sheikh Anta Diop in Senegal, one of the top universities in Dakar.
Growing with Africa for 60 years. Channel Africa celebrates 2026 with the African perspective. Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:21 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684 #Africa Update.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
The Zimbabwean Social Justice Movement, the National Democratic Working Group, has submitted a petition to African Union Commission Chairperson Mohamed Ali Yusuf, urging the AU to intervene in a proposed draft legislative that could extend the presidential terms from 5 to 7 years. The change could potentially see President Emmerson Mnangagwa remain in office until 2030. They have described this as a coup in motion. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by the National Democratic Working Group's leader and former Zimbabwean MP, Job Sikala. Job, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
No, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. But quite interested, as would everybody be, especially Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe and the diaspora, with regards to this possible change. What is your immediate reaction to reports that President Mnangagwa could remain in power until the year 2030 through proposed constitutional changes?
Like the majority of all Zimbabweans, there is a complete despair in the nation of Zimbabwe over the entrenched dictatorship by Emmerson Mnangagwa's government. There is no doubt to many Zimbabweans that this is not for the service of the people of Zimbabwe, but it is a self-serving program by Emmerson Mnangagwa to protect the looting that has been taking place during the period of his reign, to protect the human rights abuses that have been taking place in our country, to protect the elite that has been owning Zimbabwe at the expense of the majority of our people. So specifically, there is a lot of despair, there is a lot of discontentment, there is a lot of anger among the majority of our people in Zimbabwe on Emmerson Mnangagwa's attempt to prolong his term to 2030.
And from your perspective, what political and constitutional implications would such a term extension have for Zimbabwe's democratic governance and stability?
The first one is that he wants to extend his term of office by subverting the constitutional provisions that requires such an act to be implemented after putting it to the referendum. It needs to pass the test of the masses of our people, which he is avoiding. That is the first fundamental question that we have. But however, as in Zimbabwe, there is no any internal remedy that we are able to obtain, especially from the institutions of the state, which have been created to give the balance of governance in our country, such as the judiciary, on the basis that all the institutions in our country are captured institutions. So we will find and maneuver to find other avenues for us to be able to get remedy on the democratic onslaught that we are currently facing in our country.
Now, your group has petitioned the AU, that's the African Commission chairperson. What specific intervention or action are you asking the AU to take at this particular stage? And just, is it even a possibility that the AU would be able to intervene?
The first thing is that we have asked the African Union to invoke its own articles and its own protocols in as far as its member states are concerned. All the members who have signed the African Charter are obliged to follow what the African Union is all about. The first thing being that no any state can act outside the parameters of the requirements of the African Union. So the Constitutive Act of the African Union gives us the right to raise the issues when we see that there is a violation of the provisions of its own articles in terms of the Constitutive Act. And the Constitutive Act of the African Union, in terms of Article 30, provides that there should be no any unconstitutional change of government in its member states. How did they define the unconstitutional change of government, which in short is committing a coup in short terms? They later clarified that at the Lome Declaration in the year 2000. The first one being a military takeover. Number two, the takeover by rebels who have not been elected into office but have seized power through the might of the gun. Number three, the use of mercenaries to take over the control of the power. And the fifth point, which we are relying upon, is the manipulation of the constitutional processes in a member state for them to prolong the leader of the term of office of the incumbent. This provision of the prolongation or extension of the terms of office of the incumbent was put in place after Africa has faced several challenges by many regimes and many governments that have been trying to extend their terms of office after their two terms have come to an end. This having been informed by the events that happened in Zambia when Frederick Chiluba's term of office came to an end, he attempted to extend his term of office. So was in Malawi when Bakili Muluzi wanted to extend his term of office. So was Olusegun Obasanjo. So was Simon Nyoma. So were many leaders in Africa who wanted to extend their terms of office. So is Paul Kagame, Yoweri Museveni, and others. Yeah. In several countries it failed, but in others it succeeded. So these are the instruments that we have at the present moment, that if we are not going to obtain internal remedy in our own countries, we have got international institutions and international bodies who are able to attend to our case. So our petition to the African Union Commission, to the African Union Commission chairperson, is based on that, on those grounds, and we expect him to act. If he fails, the African Constitutive Act has very clear provision. We will take the government of Zimbabwe to the African Commission in Banjul in Gambia, where we are going to file a case against the Zimbabwean government that it has committed a coup against its people, and the court the commission must make a judgment or a ruling on our case that we are going to present before it.
All right. Now, Job, I cannot speak to you today without touching on the alleged hit list, and your name is quite prominent on there. What's your response to this, and especially after the loss of life of the young man in Mabopane, in Pretoria, in South Africa, where there is an alleged hit list, and you are also part of in that list? Your take on this?
Yeah, very true that the Zimbabwean government has been organizing my assassination. They have talked to my relatives, including my uncle and my other relatives back in Zimbabwe, that they must keep away from me, for they intend to cut off my head and there might be collateral damage. That message is very clear. It has reached me, and I've got the names of those members of the Zimbabwean Central Intelligence Organization who approached my relatives, both here in South Africa and also back in Zimbabwe, telling them that we want to assassinate Job Sikhala, so keep away from him, so that when we execute it, you won't be part of the collateral damage. This has been, one of the things that we have been raising with the African Union, that there is a loss of life and serious repression and the abuse of human rights in our country on the basis of those who are opposed to 2030. But however, having heard this after they assassinated Kudzai Saruwaka a week ago in Pretoria, it is very clear that these people are very serious to carry out their threats. It's not just an empty threat, but they are going to make sure that they are going to carry it out. I have advised quite a number of many international bodies and a number of many human rights organizations. Here in South Africa, I'm being kept by the international community. I'm not on my own. So I think the international community that is also taking care of myself where I am staying. I have also advised them of the intention of the Zimbabwean regime to eliminate my life.
And what sort of response are you getting from this international community and everyone that you've advised of this hit that has been put on you?
They are enraged. They are going to take action, and they are going to make this thing not just a small thing. It is going to be a huge thing. Let them just do it, and then you will see how they will react to that. Let them just try and attempt to do that. And also, like what I've told you, I am being kept under the international community where I am, and they cannot just have one of their guests being assassinated on their own eyes.
Care to share any of the details of how they will intervene, as in the international community?
By specifically bringing Zimbabwean government responsible for my assassination. Secondly, by dragging it to the international bodies to discuss the assassination of political opponents of the Emmerson Mnangagwa regime.
Yeah.
And also not only that, by also making sure that Zimbabwe is isolated throughout the country. There is no one who wants to be associated with the rogue regime. And if they are continuously carrying out these political assassinations, there is no doubt that the whole world will slap measures against them to stop the nonsense of killing innocent people on the basis of opposing their tyrannical and authoritarian.
Well, Job, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us, and this needs more time for this conversation. But thank you for indulging us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That was National Democratic Working Group's leader and former Zimbabwean MP Job Sikhala joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines, the Job Sikhala-led National Democratic Working Group has petitioned the African Union demanding its intervention to stop ZANU-PF from amending the constitution to extend Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa's term of office, among other controversial proposals. The International Committee of the Red Cross is in South Africa this week, stepping up its diplomatic efforts to address Africa's escalating humanitarian crises. And finally, the British government is introducing legislation to restrict foreign funding of political parties before the next general election. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
First up, it's football news. Mamelodi Sundowns defender Grant Kekana has refused to be drawn into the growing controversy surrounding the suspension of performance analyst Mario Masha ahead of their CAF Champions League showdown against MS Alger. SABC Sport reported that Masha, one of the club's longest-serving staff members, was temporarily sidelined amid allegations he leaked technical information to former coach Rulani Mukwena, now in charge of the Algerian side. Kekana insisted his focus remained strictly on matters on the pitch.
No, I think my job is to play football. I think the technical side and management are taking care of that. And yeah, that's all I can comment on that situation.
On facing MC Alger in a must-win clash at Loftus Versfeld on Saturday, Kekana admitted it was arguably one of the most important matches of their campaign.
Yeah, it's a different feeling, a different challenge, but one that we're ready for. I think, a lot of us have been at Sundowns for quite some time, and we understand what's at stake. So for us, it's just to go into the game on Saturday as well prepared as possible, to go out there and do our best. I think the one advantage we have is that it's our home game. So obviously we're going to urge our supporters to come out there in numbers because we're going to need them as our 12th man. It's going to be difficult like all Champions League games, but we'll be up for it.
On to cricket news. India opener Abhishek Sharma has been discharged from hospital after treatment for an upset stomach, but remains doubtful for today's T20 World Cup Group A clash against Namibia in New Delhi. The 25-year-old was admitted on Tuesday, having carried the issue since India's opening win. He was dismissed for a duck against the United States. Teammate Tilak Varma confirmed Sharma's release, while pace spearhead Jasprit Bumrah is expected to return after missing the opener with fever. India will then travel to Colombo for Sunday's blockbuster against Pakistan after the government in Islamabad reversed its boycott order earlier this week. Meanwhile, Alexander Bublik battled past Hubert Hurkacz to reach the second round of the Rotterdam Open, winning a marathon contest 6-7, 2-7, 7-6 and 7-1 and 7-5. Hurkacz, celebrating his 29th birthday, fired down 25 aces and even served for the match of 5-4 in the second set. But Bublik clawed his way back to turn the tide. The Kazakh, seeded third, now faces Jan-Lennard Struff in the last 16 as he bids for the second title of 2026, having already triumphed in the Hong Kong last month. And finally, Mercedes boss Toto Wolff has admitted that Red Bull remained the benchmark as Formula One preseason testing got underway in Bahrain. Day one saw reigning world champion Lando Norris top the timesheets for McLaren, just 0.129 seconds quicker than Max Verstappen. But Wolff pointed to the Mercedes data, suggesting Red Bull's new power unit is already more effective than its rivals. This season marks the biggest rules overhaul in F1 history, with fresh designs for power units, chassis, tires and fuel. The new 1.6-litre V6 turbo hybrids now deliver a near 50-50 split between internal combustion and electrical power. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
A situação do ativista angolano Serrote José de Oliveira, preso desde julho, tem gerado grande preocupação internacional. Conhecido como General Nila e presidente do movimento União Nacional para a Total Revolução de Angola, Serrote iniciou uma greve de fome em protesto contra a sua prisão, que considera arbitrária. De acordo com a Amnistia Internacional, o estado de saúde do ativista está a deteriorar-se rapidamente devido à falta de acesso a cuidados médicos adequados. Para discutir o impacto deste caso e o estado da liberdade política em Angola, vamos conversar com Dito Dale, ativista e defensor dos direitos humanos.
Nós estamos diante de uma clara estratégia de aniquilar os jovens. Porque quando uma pessoa está doente, deve ser assistido. Ao não proporcionar esses cuidados médicos, o que o regime quer? Não quer que esse jovem saia livre e com vida da prisão. Quer matá-lo.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
A very good afternoon. Libya has awarded oil and gas exploration blocks to foreign oil companies in its first licensing round in nearly 2 decades as it seeks to revitalize the sector despite ongoing political division. The National Oil Corporation, NOC, announced the winners of its first bid round since 2007. The awards signal renewed interest as foreign investors have been wary of years of Libya's operating environment after it descended into chaos following the 2011 overthrow of longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi. South African Electricity Minister Dr. Hossein Ramokgopa has confirmed that President Cyril Ramaphosa will outline solutions reached to address the cost of electricity in his State of the Nation address this evening in Cape Town. There is growing discontentment over the National Energy Regulator's approved electricity price increases, which experts warn could further push families into poverty. Ramokgopa spoke to SABC News outside the Cape Town City Hall.
The President will say something about how we're going to address the cost of electricity. I will come, I think, end of March to put before the country on how we want to address the electricity pricing policy and just invite comments. And I'm confident that by June we'd have addressed this situation and get into a new dispensation where we can find a price path that allows us to ensure that business is competitive and we don't strangle the household.
Meanwhile, poverty, jobs and the high cost of living are among the concerns that Cape Townians have raised ahead of the SONA. Sivena Tivalum, who is from the Cape Flats, spoke to SABC News at a bus terminal.
The cause of unemployment rate is a very huge problem because most of people that have education and educated, they don't have where to apply. Some of them, they do have qualification, but they don't have where they can go through. And also the crime in our cities become a big problem. So it's how the government can talk with that issue and try to solve it.
Chief Executive for Personal Segment at South Africa's Commercial at the First National Bank, Latanya Johnson, says that the newly launched end-to-end digital account opening process for stokvels will ensure safety. Stokvels are a communal savings schemes in South African black communities. The stokvel industry in the country is estimated to be worth over $3 billion. Johnson says stokvels have been pivotal in helping families to navigate financial uncertainties.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is we appreciate the importance of the stokvel sector in South Africa. And the reason why it's important is because it's about financial inclusion. A lot of people join stokvels even before they've gone into a bank. So that was the first important point. The second thing is stokvels have been pivotal in helping families to navigate financial uncertainties. If you think about it, why do we save? Groceries, funeral, we save for education. So we felt by creating this solution, we can also help communities to navigate economic shocks, help them to plan better.
New data shows that China's emissions of carbon dioxide fell in 2025, the first full year to show such a decline. Though the drop is just 0.3%, campaigners say it could be a milestone. The BBC's Justin Rollett has the details.
This is not a dramatic breakthrough, but it means emissions from the world's manufacturing hub and second largest economy have now been flat or falling for almost 2 years. Carbon Brief's figures show a finely balanced picture. Emissions dropped across major sectors, including transport, power, cement and metals, but rose in the chemical industry. China also added more coal and gas-fired power capacity last year than in any year for a decade.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 352. In Botswana, it's at 12.97. Kenya, 128 shilling 176. And Zambia, 18 kwacha 98. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5.19. Russia, 77 rubles 20. India, 90 rupees 65. China, 61.91. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 15 rand 88 cents. 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold $5,072, while platinum is at $2,118 per ounce. Brand crude oil is at $69.64 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabisolo Hogo.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. ChannelAfrica.co.za. Africa's story shines at 60. Channel Africa.
The African perspective.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It is 12:45 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, reports of child abuse and neglect in South Africa are skyrocketing. In 2024-2025 financial year, the Department of Social Development reported more than 26,000 cases. Social Development Minister Sisisi Tolashe raises concerns about pregnancies among girls aged 10 to 14, describing them as evidence of deep-rooted sexual abuse and exploitation. But one young man from Johannesburg is trying to make a difference in protecting children, and he now joins us in studio. Kurt van Heerden, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here.
You know, it's when we read these stories and we go through them, and there are stories coming out, and with the advent of social media, we get to see a lot more of what's happening behind closed doors. Talk to us about how it all started for you and how you got involved. It's been 10 years in the making.
How it all started for me was one night when I was sitting and doing some work. My team that works with me, Austin, Ensley and Earl, they showed me a video that was circulating around on social media about a 4-year-old that was smoking mandrakes. And why that particular video struck a chord in my heart is because you have ex-addicts showing me this video. Now, I saw them broken, but I've never in the 10 years seen a child smoke from a mandrake's pipe. I wanted to go home because it was late, and my son wanted daddy home. But I called my wife and I said, babe, let me just go and see where this is and how I can assist. The team got very excited. We jumped into the car. And when we got there, we saw what we never thought we would. It was a 4-year-old that was being groomed and being taught how to smoke drugs from that tender age. That's where it all started. Took out my phone, went live. There was over 7,000 people on that live video. And ever since that day, the unspoken of realities within our communities started coming to the surface. And it was just one case upon the other after that. That's where it all started. The night with a little boy by the name of Casper, 5 years old. I want to correct that. I think I said 4. 5 years old, being groomed how to smoke and become a user. That's when everything changed for us as it relates to the children's cases.
Now, looking at just the reported cases, because now when we look at the figures being 26,000, these are the reported, more than 26,000. What about the ones that are not reported?
Yeah, I think both of them are growing at an alarming rate. I think the ones that are not being reported are the people that has grown desensitized with the ongoing realities of this is just how it is. So the ones that are not being reported can be for various reasons. One, I'll explain it in the context of what I've experienced. You take a reported case to a system that's meant to protect the children. but the system in and of itself adds to the disappointment of that child. And that can be a contributing factor as to why cases are not reported. Because people are seeing how the system that must protect our children are the very system that's adding to the experience of disappointment and neglect that the children are experiencing on the ground.
I want you to expand on that.
Let me give you an example. When we get a call, subsection 110 in the Children's Act gives me, as a religious leader, mandatory response duty. But I don't respond because it's mandatory. I respond because it's passion and purpose. I respond because I understand a child saved today strengthens the voice of a nation tomorrow. So the processes that we have to go through in the removal of a child is we respond according to the Children's Act, Act 38 of 2005, subsection 150, when a child is in need of care and protection, when a child's mental health, physical health, and social well-being is important. So that's the reference and the foundation on which we respond to protect ourselves and to ensure that we stay in the legal framework of what's required of us. But we cannot remove a child. We are not mandated to by the Children's Act. It is either a police official or a social worker that must remove a child. When we get to SAPS, that's where the problem starts.
And what are you facing when you get to SAPS? What sort of reaction and response are you getting?
I want to try and choose my words wisely because I don't want to make it seem as if I am going to attack SAPS online.
Of course.
But I want to say it as bluntly and as open and as honest in reference to the experience I had. Your question is, what is it that I experience when I get there? First experience is SAPS don't know their role in the Children's Act. They don't know that they are mandated to respond according to the Children's Act. We have on numerous occasions heard that, no, we don't have a social worker, we can't get a hold of a social worker. To the point where I went to my car, opened up my boot and pulled out the book of the Children's Act, took them to the Act and said, it's not only a social worker. It is either you as a police official or a social worker that must respond. To the point where I even went further with the Children's Act, section 110(4)(a) tells us that it's a police official's responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of the child. From there, the police official, upon the removal, must then contact a social worker. The social worker must make sure that that child's case gets to the court within 2 days. Now, out of every 10 cases we take to SAPS, 1 makes it to court.
Why?
Because the justice system is failing our children. I believe because we have wrong people in right positions and right people in wrong positions.
Now, what do you believe are the main drivers of child abuse and neglect in communities? And how much do poverty and unemployment play in terms of a role in influencing what we're seeing in a number of communities?
It plays an absolutely big role. Firstly, I think your question is, what do I think plays a contributing factor to the child abuse that's happening within our communities? I believe it's transgenerational trauma that has not been dealt with. I believe that broken parents cannot raise healed children. It's one thing for a parent to be broken. It's an added trauma when you're broken and broke. When you're broken and unemployed. When you're broken and you're dealing with various unexplainable events happening around you. People getting shot, stabbed, and brutally beaten. These are common occurrences to us. We're sitting in a house in El Dorado Park within our communities, and gunshots are going off. And people that's sitting around us are not responding to it because the sound of a gunshot has become normal. We don't flinch anymore. We don't try and run away from it. So those are all the contributing factors. And I believe what is happening, that most parents that we have now responded to as it relates to these children's cases, sad to say, but this is what I've experienced. They're having children, not because they want to, but because they're using that child as a means of an income for that child's SASSA.
Interesting facts. That I think that most generally people will speak about these issues, but the big challenge now is what solutions are there? Practical solutions.
The practical solutions is exactly what we're trying to do, but that practical solutions can only be seen through effectively when a system can support that practical solution. The practical solution is for me to go and take the child, but I can't do that. So the practical solution is, how do I work not as one who is against the law? How do I work as one who's in partnership with the law? But what do I do on the other end when my partnership with the law is constantly met with inaction, is constantly met with one van that's trying to service a whole community? Every child's case that we respond to, it never takes SAPS between 5 or 30 minutes to give us a van. It always takes more than an hour. One case we were responding to, a child was being sexually abused by her father on the time, at the moment when we were waiting for a van from SAPS.
Wait, are you saying while you guys were waiting at the house?
While we were waiting for SAPS to give us a van, a child was being sexually abused.
And what happened to that case?
SAPS could not get a van because SAPS is telling us we've got one van to service the whole community. Now we're dealing with the community that's going through what the community is going through, and the very people that must defend the community is under-resourced to do so. To make matters worse, 2 or 3 of those police officials are sitting on the other side of the desk scrolling through TikTok. Very nonchalant, slouching in their chairs, saying, just wait until the van comes. I mean, a child is being molested by her father, and that's your response? And you know what they do? When we make our voices loud, they flip the script and make it seem as if we are the people who can't work with them. When we come, they're mandated by the Children's Act to approach you, to ask you to send a van with us. And when we got to that place, you know what happened? As descriptive as this is going to sound, the child had discharged on her private part. Now, what would have happened is SAPS could respond promptly and swiftly, but SAPS can't do that because they're under-resourced, and I believe they've lost passion to serve the community. You cannot hold a position when you don't have the information of what's happening on the ground in that community, because that will directly impact the compassion you must serve with and the urgency you must respond with. If you don't know what's happening in the community, you won't have credibility in your response.
And what are you getting before we go on? I just must apologize for the descriptive language that is being used live in studio. But this is a very emotive conversation that we're having with Kurt van Heerden, who sees this and experiences this with his team on a daily basis. And Kurt, what sort of responses do you get from the leaders? Government, what are you getting from those people who are supposed to be assisting communities in ensuring that children are safe, that the community is safe as a whole?
I love that question, because I think what we are currently dealing with is the consequences of leaders and government not responding. So there's no assistance because their inaction has resulted in the mess we're dealing with now.
Kurt, what do you need? What do you need in terms of action to be taken, in terms of, services, and ensuring that there is not just one van? Because when we speak of communities are quite huge. They're massive and with different extensions. So what do you need on the ground for leaders to come through and say, listen, this is what we're going to bring forward?
Firstly, I think I need our communities not to respond out of being desensitized. And secondly, I need a meeting with the Minister of Police.
Have you requested this before?
Numerous of times.
And
we've not gotten a response. Maybe we need to email him, but we've put out there, we've tagged him in stuff, and maybe our approach was wrong. But I don't know how it is that we can get a hold of him, because until we get to the top person that needs to make the decisions, we're always going to be fighting an ineffective fight. So what I need, more than the community not being desensitized, is to sit with the Minister of Police and to say to him, if we don't resource our community centers, we're fighting a losing battle on the ground. How do we win a fight on the ground when the people that must support that fight in their response are under-resourced to do so? So what I need is a meeting with the Minister of Police for him to understand the reality on the ground, more than just make speeches about it.
And a message to the different communities that you work with, and if they're listening and when they see this, what message do you have to the people on the ground, the community more especially people who may need your assistance and just don't know how to reach out?
My message is, don't stay in your house when we are in your community. Because until it knocks on your door, maybe then you'll understand why we're in your community. So we have to get to a point where we understand that the way that we're going to build our communities and build this nation is not to turn a blind eye to the children who must be the pioneers of it tomorrow. Because if we can't respond to a child that's in need, and then we must ask ourselves how we're going to heal our community. So it's one child at a time, one family at a time, which creates a healed environment for our communities to get hope again. And when our communities are saved at grassroots level, with all the proper infrastructure that I believe we're still far away from, that begins to pioneer a new path for South Africa as a whole.
Kurt, you know what? I think we need more time. You need to come back and for us to continue this conversation. And hopefully by then you would have had your meet up with the police minister or somebody in leadership who can make changes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. That's Kurt van Heerden, a community activist and deputy president of the People's Movement for Change. And thus our questions on all our social media platforms. We will be back again tomorrow, but it is a chilling one. And continue listening to Channel Africa. #Africa Updates. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Deborah. Good afternoon. I'm Cholani Tulo Wepe. The South African Human Rights Commission, SAHRC, is calling on the government to declare the current water crisis a national disaster. The call comes amid the ongoing protest over water shortages, which have left communities with dry taps for weeks. Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majotina briefed the media in Midrand in the north of Pretoria earlier today. She confirmed that water supply has been restored in some areas. The Commission says the water crisis has reached a level where a broad, integrated and coordinated effort is required to turn the dire situation around. Didebo Ndamani has the story.
The SAHRC has expressed concern that the absence of water at schools affects educational outcomes as learners are forced to miss school. It also stressed that the disruption has a detrimental impact on hospitals and clinics, impinging on the right to health care. The Commission warns that the declaration of a national state of disaster should not become a breeding ground for corruption and embezzlement of funds. It says sufficient oversight measures to ensure fiscal prudence should be instilled.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa Executive Secretary Clava Gatete says water and sanitation must be recognized as a critical economic infrastructure, warning that limited access threatens Africa's productivity and development. Gatete was speaking at the opening of the 48th Ordinary Session of the African Union Executive Council at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, ahead of this weekend's 39th AU Summit of Heads of State themed Assuring Sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. He noted that more than 300 million Africans still lack safe drinking water.
Indeed, water and sanitation are not merely social services, but economic infrastructure.